Okay, so in the last video, I showed you the different materials that are needed to make these rubber molds, the long stick with the curved shape to make the heel, which is wood, the Dremel tool to create it, and then the process of making the molds for the plaster heels is going to be, you're just going to follow your instructions. You're going to use the little cups that I showed you to make all these heels. And once you get the heels, get several made, have them set aside, and then you can do whatever you want with them. You can cover them, you can paint them, put glitter all over them. They're versatile and they're handy. So I highly recommend you going through the pain and effort of making this heel in order to have the plaster heels and the molds. Okay, now we're going to set these aside and we're going to talk about your soles. So your sole, this inside part here, it's going to get covered with some fabric of some type. And then you've got your foam, your heel, which you're going to paint or do whatever to, your upper front, your upper back, or you can make a pump. I like making this type of shoe because it's easiest, it's fastest, and quickest, but we're going to try to do a pair of pumps. And we're going to work with a couple of pattern pieces and make it happen. Okay, and then get some little buckles. This is a 3mm buckle, I believe. I think it's a 3mm. But you can get some buckles, belt buckles. I don't know about smaller, tiny shoe buckles from Tamara Casey at Fletcher Patterns. She's got lots of wonderful little things, zippers and accessories that are marvelous. I love her. I think she's marvelous. Okay, now we're going to make a couple of soles. I've used my masters here, and I've cut out 4 soles. We've got 2 lefts and 2 rights. If you'll notice upside down, you have to have this outer curve That's the outer part of the foot. Okay? The inner part is not as curved. But these are 1 inch and 7/8 long. The original tracing for the foot of the 16-inch Tonner doll is 1.5 inches long. And it looks kind of like the bottom of a flip-flop. See how the toe is flat? Well, in this case, I've added the extension to create a pump look. So when you draw off these masters in order to make a pump, or maybe a stiletto, really, I think it's the heel that makes it a stiletto, but a pointed toe stiletto is classic. You're going to use this to start. This is 1.5 inches long. This is 1 7/8 inches. These stilettos are 2 inches, basically. 2 inches. Okay. Now, I have this cute little tiny clip. I keep my masters together. I keep them in an envelope. Keeps them nice and safe. Oops. Patterns for shoes. All right, now let's make the sole of this shoe, because regardless of what it looks like, it is, oops, it's upside down. When I make these, I mark them left and right on both sides. I just try to keep my ducks in a row and keep everything organized. Now that flashing tape, I've cut off 2 pieces, and I'm going to take the cover, or the sticky part, open it up, and I'm going to create just a simple line with my nail. And then I'm going to fold it in on itself. It takes a little bit of practice, but you can do it. And you're creating this metal piece that is going to be the miracle that keeps your shoe bent to the shape of the doll's foot. So you're going to do this, make a pair. I have to keep checking and making sure my hands are in the camera. I bought this new superstructure to hold my phone. Now this is going to be a little bit thick, so I probably am going to have to trim it down, trim the length. All right. Now we're going to glue this like this. To the sole of the shoe. And then we're going to take these and put them on top. But before we do that, we're going to have to give this just, I think, a little bit of a trim. Well, yeah, I think we're going to trim the width just a skosh. Skosh is a Japanese word. I don't know if you knew that. It's a cute little word. My parents were stationed in Japan just after the occupation in 1950, after the World War II ended. And they picked up Japanese. And I don't know Japanese, but it's a beautiful language. Beautiful people. Okay, now we're going to glue. This is where the Fabri-Tac comes in. This is called Fabri-Fix. It used to be called Fabri-Tac. I think I mentioned that in my materials supplies video, but this stuff is awesome. It rocks beyond belief. So we're going to glue this down. I'm working on parchment paper on my desktop. It helps with mess, but we're going to glue this down. It doesn't take very much glue. I don't recommend going too crazy with the glue, but I'm going to get that on. Okay. There. That's good. All right, now I'm going to take this other left. We're going to turn it over. And we're going to get this perimeter covered in glue. I hope I'm getting this okay. And we're just going to lay this right down on top. Press it down. And then we're going to take the right. And now we're going to get those clothespins and we're going to go crazy with the clothespins. I do this because I like it to be a really tight bond. It doesn't help if this comes loose at any point. You don't want that to happen. And while this is being tightened up, we're going to work on creating the body of the pump. This is something where you're going to have to use your creative ability to make patterns to create the shoes. And the way you do that is by using the soles. Using the soles and shaping your material so that you can fold it over the sole, cover the sole, and then create your upper and your heel part, or however you're making, if you're making a ribbon sandal, using ribbon. You know, you probably won't need a pattern, but you do want to do something pretty and creative. There are a lot of people showing you how to make shoes on YouTube, thank goodness. I certainly have watched my share of videos. So this, what I'm doing right now and showing this to you, this is what happens when you get glue on your clothespins. I was going to call them Q-tips there for a second. There's another one. There. Okay. So now we're tightening up our soles. So we're going to set those to the side. And I'm going to take some parchment paper, or not parchment paper, tracing paper. And we're going to talk about how this is going to come together. These last shoes that I made have got a heel. They were incised here on the sides so that the straps would go in. The heels were covered in this wonderful flexible pleather. Super stretchy pleather. It's very thin. And this upper here was modified from this piece. This piece goes over like this, and you allow about 1/8 of an inch or so that it comes around and goes under the sole. Okay? This is what I sort of came up with after seeing other people make patterns for the uppers. For a pump, it comes around and you actually end up with a back that looks like this. I have masters of these. I have in the manila folder stock, card stock. And these are good to have for, you know, longevity, so that you can remake these if something gets lost. So, all right, so this piece was designed in such a way that you would join it to this piece like this, or you don't cut it apart. You make it one long piece, and that is the classic shape that I've seen made in order to make a pump. What happens is that this ends up turning and curving around the back, and you put a seam here, you sew it, and then you press it open inside here. Well, before you apply it, it's going to be pressed open or glued open so that it's nice and flat back here. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. Okay? So this piece is this. I don't know if you'll notice, but I have little arrows to remind myself, not that I need that reminder, but I have little arrows and a line, and those go on the fold. And then I have little notches for cutting. I wanted to show that to you, so that's why I drew those on there. Not that I would forget, but I knew I was going to do this video for you. Okay, so, and you would do that here. You would draw it on these pieces to remind yourself, if you needed to, that you're going to need to cut and snip in order to get that underneath the sole. This is hidden because I put the sole, the outer sole, the bottom sole on. But I'm going to show you in this process how it's going to work. But right now we're going to create a pump pattern. And I just want to show this to you because I have yet to make a pair of pumps that I loved. And I didn't toss. I have tossed so many completed soles out in the trash with a pump. So I'm questioning whether I want to do this or not, but it is the only way. I could make another pair of these, but I think you get the point. I liked how I put the leather like this, or the pleather. I love these shoes. I just love the way it's kind of like part mule, kind of a little bit like a mule and a sandal and a Mary Jane. Okay, so one of the things that I think I'm going to do with this is I'm going to trace this. Make sure this is in the picture. I'm going to trace this, and I'm going to make another one of these. Actually, I think I'm going to move it like this. Except, you know what? I'm just going to use this one. This is easier. It's more firm. Okay, that's good. All right, now we're going to take this and I think that's going to end up being much too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this in just a skosh. I'm going to figure out, about that much. I'm going to bring this in. This is all just guesswork here. I guess I could be more scientific with this, but we're just going to do this because this is going to help you to remember that you're going to sew this. Okay. Now, this is our fold line. Now, we want to be accurate, so the only question right now is, have I allowed enough length here? Because I know for certain that this is too long in order to make this work. This is going to be way too much length from here to here on the shoe, and it's going to make a even though the sole will fit, the upper will look gapey. So we're going to take this now and we're going to fold this over. And I am going to draw, sketch, whatever. Sketching, sketching, sketching. Okay, there's our pattern for our pump. Okay. Now I'm just gonna cut this out. And we're going to see the proof in the pudding because I'm going to wrap it around her foot. And if it doesn't work, then we're going to redraw it and we're going to lengthen it. Okay, can you see that well? All right, so let's give it a cut. So I don't know if you saw any of my wedding shoe posts, but I'm gonna buy a Lazy Susan and I'm gonna put my bridal gowns on my 4 dolls and put them on the Lazy Susan. And I need to get some more stands. One of these days I'm going to make a bunch of dress forms so I can put my clothes on some dress forms. And then I'm going to make a stand, a bunch of stands that hold hangers so that I can do a show. And I can put my outfits on hangers and hang them from a standing hook. And it would be so wonderful for us as a group and for some of the other Tonner doll people to have a doll show. I know that there are doll shows, but I don't like regulations. I don't like being told what to do. I like to just organize it in a way that is somewhat casual. I'm not much of a rule follower. I like things to be free and easy so that there's less stress for for people. We've got so much stress these days. All right, now let's see what happens when we take the doll and wrap this around her foot. So remember, we have to take into consideration that we're going to have about 1/8 of an inch that's going to go underneath the doll shoe, or the doll sole. So we're going to take this now, and we're going to wrap it. Maybe I need to do this. There we go. That's better. Okay. Ooh, look at that. It's way too long. Okay. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to keep a certain amount of edge. I am only going to take off about that much. So this is what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm going to trim. So you're just kind of feeling your way through. Again, we're creating a pump. And that's going to come around like this. See that right there? This is what makes me crazy about a pump, is getting it so that it functionally stays nice around the outside of the foot. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed what I was doing, but it's going to have to curve like this and come around and back. And this is where it gets kind of beastly and makes me want to start drinking, or my Tourette's comes out. So, which I don't have Tourette's. Don't mean to make fun of that, because it is an issue for folks. But I have yet to ever perfect a pump. That's why I make shoes that look like this. All right, I'm going to try something. I think the important thing is for you to learn and fudge and adjust and so on. So if we bring this in a little bit more here, where we take and bring this line, we might have a little bit more coverage. I'm adding just a little bit more length back in here. I've seen them where they've come up like this more and gone back down, where they've curved in a little bit. Patterns, I mean. But I'm not going to do it because I'm going to use fabric and it's going to flex. My problem is in this area here. This will gape. So I'm thinking that I need to do this. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I've extended that back end just a skosh. All right, we're going to try this and we're going to cut some fabric. I'm just going to go ahead and do this. Tracing paper is very, very important. You need to have it. I think I showed you the different tracing paper that I have in the roll, which is actually architectural paper, which I stopped using after I learned how to draft on it with computerized software. People, real architects and designers use it in terms of doing architectural drawings, but that was rare that I did because other people did my construction documents. Okay. Are you seeing this? Can you see it very well? Give it a little bit more darkness. So what I need to do is I need to create a master out of cardstock with this. But for right now, we're not going to do it. Not right now. We are going to run with it for time's sake. Okay. We're going to cut this out. We're going to do a second wrap around her foot. Getting the toe, the front toe, right when it comes to snipping. When you do your snipping, I usually snip like this, here and here. That way this goes around and you can snip off this as you're, turning it under, and you'll see that when I start doing that. When I start fitting it around the sole. But first we have to wrap the sole. I've tried all kinds of things with the soles of the shoes. I put a little bit of interfacing on the top to kind of give it a little bit of padding, but I'm like, it's a doll. It's not like it needs insoles. So I stopped doing that. Women, we're funny that way. I think you understand what I'm saying. Okay. Now, let's take the foot again, and let's see if we might have a little bit better. My doll feet are dirty. I need to wipe them off. All right, so can you see that? I've got that about like that. That's what's going to go get folded under. Then we're going to go here. See, we've still got too much length. And here. And here. And then we're going to sew that together. Can you see that? That looks a little bit better. I think that's going to work better. You know what? I am cutting out this length, and then I am going to sew to the back of the heel to fit until it fits right. I'm going to cut it off long, and then I'm going to seam it up the back and angle the seam as I go. So I will sew it. All right, that's going to be good for now. I think we're not going to fuss with that. We're going to toss this old one out. And I'll put these back. If all else fails, we'll make the same exact pair of shoes that I made before, but I don't think we're going to have to. You can always DM me at some point if you're stuck in a rut, and then if we need to, we'll talk on the phone. I'm a phone call person. I never did enjoy texting, although it is expedient. Okay, so there's the foot. From here to here is 1.5 inches. You're going to know that you're doing it right when your sole, your master, fits exactly right. And in this case, we'll do this one. This is the pump. There's the back of the heel. It goes up and around. You see that? That took a long time for me to get to that point, but it eventually achieved it. Okay, so don't forget that your master sole is going to look like that. And you're going to create your new soles like stilettos or pumps or a square toe or whatever, but you're going to make sure that these are all thin, like the foot is thin from here to here, because the more you trace over and over, the fatter it's going to get and the clunkier your shoe is going to be. And I've already been down that path and realized I had to thin this in order for the shoes to look like shoes instead of, you know, some sort of gigantic thick boot, which you don't want clunky boots either. Okay, which I'm going to make a pair of boots. Whether I film that or not, I don't know. At some point, I probably will. Okay, everything's stashed back in my envelope. I'm keeping these aside for reference. And now we're going to put Jane back up on her stand. There you go. Your arms are just akimbo. There you go. Okay. I wonder where that comes from. Akimbo. Akimbo. All right, so we're going to take off these clothespins. I love them. I love clothespins. People are now sewing with these clips instead of pins. Have you noticed that in some of the videos that you watch, that they're using clips to hold the fabric together instead of pins? I don't know, maybe someday I will. Okay, done with the clothespins for now. But I'm telling you, you have to have these. Hobby Lobby. If you don't have a Hobby Lobby, just go to a craft store and ask for miniature clothespins. If you can't get them at a craft store, then go online, go to Etsy, go to Amazon, see what they've got. I'm sure you'll find them somewhere. Okay. Now, here's my soles. And guess what? They hold their shape. They're supposed to be glued together and tight on the side. Okay? So, I usually bend them and then flatten them back out. So now I'm going to do that. That's the right. I need to do the left. I think it makes a difference if you make sure you're accurate. Oh, these edges are still sticking out. Okay. Or gaping, whatever, not sticking out, but gaping. And then you bring that around. And that's why we have the aluminum thing in the middle, is so that it retains its shape. And it stays well. Okay, don't be afraid to make this a nice, sharp edge if you want to. It's not going to hurt anything. We'll do the right. Don't let your edge stick out much more than that. That's not even 1/8 of an inch. But that's all there should be on the back. Because as you build up and you add and wrap over and glue onto this, it's going to come out. Okay. All right. Now, guess what we're going to use? We're going to use satin on our sole. We're going to have satin soles. So we're just going to press these back down a little bit. Okay. With this, you're going to want to take on a pencil. See? Now see, I did that wrong. So this needs to actually bend this way because this curve is on the outside of the foot. You see that? There's the curve and the curve. So now we're going to do this. You want at least, actually, you know, I'm going to use this. Use your water marker. Okay. Do you see what I did? All right. Looks like Bigfoot. these out as fast as I can. Oh, wrong scissors. See what happened? That's why you have certain scissors for certain work. Can't believe I cut that flashing with these scissors. Okay. Perfection isn't necessary. If you want to make a pattern for cutting out the covering of the sole covering, do it. It certainly will work functionally better than what I'm doing probably now. But I've been doing this enough that I'm feeling pretty calm about that. Okay. That's the right. And this is the left. Not that you really have to be too religious about making them perfect, because it's really just sort of like an oval. Big, long kind of racetrack oval. Okay. Okay. Now I have my sole covers. So now I'm going to do my clips. And I stick to about 1/8 of an inch. This is a really thin, papery kind of thin satin. How far apart you make your snips is, I think, a little bit important, but it's about how it wraps and bunches underneath. And trimming it is sometimes needed. And when I say trim, I mean like angle your cut so that you kind of do this in some spots, especially here at the toe. Like, actually that toe is going to end up kind of caterwonky because it looks like I slit down the middle instead of wide, which I didn't intend to do. That's why I always start at the ends and do this. That's good. Okay, now let's do the right. This was the left. Oh, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Okay. So sometimes with thicker fabrics, I'll glue the top. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to glue along the edge of the bottom. Like I said, if this glue is liquefied with acetone. Don't use nail polish remover, use acetone. just going to go around the edge. And you can get it off your fingers using acetone, or you can just roll it off. You can use a little bit of oil. That's probably less difficult or less chemically. Okay. Oh, shoot. I like doing the ends first, which I didn't. And you just sort of roll it, maybe moisten your fingers and roll it so that it doesn't look so bumpy on the outer edges. It's going to be covered up with the pump, or with the outer pump. Come on, stay. There we go. All right, this is where you say, okay, do I cut this or do I just glue it down? And this is so thin that I am going to glue it down. I'm just going to put some extra glue on there. And I'm just going to fold it in and push, and this is where you're going to get glue on your fingers, but you know, that's what it is. See? So this thing's sticking up. That's pretty darn flat. There you go. Okay, that's one down. Okay, we're gonna let that dry. And I'm gonna take some nail, scrape that up, use a little spit. Sorry. Practicality. All right, now we're gonna do this one. This is the top side because of that curve. I'm gonna turn it over and we're gonna glue. Okay. And we'll just turn that over like that. Come on. This is the roping kittens part. There. Sorry, I took it off camera, I think. All right, moisten your fingers, stretch it and roll. There. See how that part kind of goes down like that? There. There. I'm gonna have to add glue. Okay. If this is a thicker fabric, you really are going to have to just play it by ear how you lay all this down, because a grace effect happens when you put that outer sole on the bottom. It tends to cover over everything and everything gets happier. Come on. There we go. All right. Ah, that was the tissue box. I don't recommend putting tissue on your fingers at this point because you'll get even more of a mess. But just getting your fingers wet using some spit goes a long way. I know I'm being gross, but... Okay. All right, now, I prefer to keep the top of my glue edge clean and keep it capped. I don't like to leave it uncapped. All right. If it feels a little bit bulky on the top side, just moisten your fingers and roll. Okay. We're going to let those dry. And while we're doing that, we're going to get our pattern and we're going to get our upper fabric cut. And after I get this cut, we're going to cut two. I have to remember which side is right on this. Yeah, okay. This is the right side. I'm going to put those in. And now I'm going to use some pins. Oops, I was pinning my... There. That's good. That sort of holds that tip down. Okay. Now, one of the things you need to be thinking about is this upper fabric stable enough to keep its shape without lining it? Okay. Is it? This is pretty firm. I think I might like to put maybe some, I think I might put some interfacing on that, just to kind of hold everything together. Okay. All right. The interfacing will help stabilize this inner edge. In my last pair of shoes with the vinyl, I lined the vinyl with this paisley, and then I took a magic marker because it made it look a little bit nicer. And you know, in real life, the edges of vinyl and edges of shoes, manufacturers use this rubber coating that goes along the edge. Well, we don't have that luxury because we're dealing with minutia beyond compare. And so instead what I did, I just used magic marker and just gently went along this edge to darken it. There's a little bit of light still on there, and I can, I mean, you got to be careful with this or you're just going to destroy something. But if you just take the tip of your marker and go in there, and any part that's kind of light looking, you just touch with the marker, it absorbs it, it makes it look black, and it actually looks much better on the foot, and it looks more finished. And it does it. It does what it needs to do. I did that on the bottom of the heel. I did that along the top of where I put the vinyl before I glued the heel on. And I mean, this isn't perfect by any means here, but it looks dang good in general. So, okay. All right, so we have cut our upper, and we are going to get this fabric out of the way. And now we're going to take this off, and we're going to get some interfacing. And we're going to cut two of the interfacing. Now, I know that the inside is the right side of the fabric, so I'm going to take this with the outside up because that's where we're pressing the interfacing. I need to turn my iron on. Okay. And then we're going to cut the interfacing. After we pin it. I will have to say, making that wood heel is going to be a challenge. But if you have a Dremel tool and you wear a mask and you keep your breathing protected as you cut it out of the wood, if you can find a piece of wood like that, if all else fails, I don't want to go into the business of making heels for anyone, but if you don't want the challenge, I will consider mailing you a plaster heel for you to make your own plaster heels. I'll charge you for it. It won't be cheap. You'll have to pay shipping and handling because I'll have to package it so that it doesn't get crushed into dust. But I'll consider it. I'm not saying yes at this point, but I'll consider it. I don't want to mail out 50 heels, but if I do, I intend to charge for that. Okay. My heels have to be sanded a little bit more. I'm not going to go into that detail for you. You'll have to do that yourself, especially if you paint them versus, cover them with some sort of vinyl or whatever which hides the flaws. Okay. Now, we've got wrong sides out. And we're going to get that on there. Now this adds to the thickness, regretfully, that's going to go over or go under the sole. But we have to stabilize this in order to get a happy outcome. All right, now, there we go. Excuse me a second while I iron it on my ironing pad. Don't wiggle your iron too much or it'll make it wrinkle and pucker like that. Okay. All right, now the skirt that I'm making that's going to match this dress, I put fray check on. And I always am paranoid about fray check because sometimes it leaves a shadow or a stained, darkened effect. With this wool, it just dries clear. But I stabilized the edge and it looks marvelous. So right now, I'm going to turn this over and I am going to stabilize with fray check. I'm not stabilizing here because this is going to get glued, clipped and glued. But I am going to stabilize in here. Doesn't have to be a lot, just a little bit goes a long way. Okay. Try not to disturb the edge too much, because then it's going to not look good on the foot. Some people put a seam in here. You know, they'll sew a stitch. Okay, that's fine. I don't think I don't want to do that. If that's what you want to do, don't zigzag it, for goodness sakes. The more you disturb the fabric, the more you torque it, the more it looks funky. If you put a seam on here and the machine starts, you know, doing something stupid like it always does, then you're stuck and you have to cut a whole new one, because then suddenly this is now all out of whack. I don't know what else to do other than to stabilize it with this interfacing, and to use the fray check. Like you saw on that skirt piece, it dries completely clear. So this will go away and we'll be ready to seam it at the back and then fit to the sole. We're going to clip the edges, but first we're going to seam it, and we're going to put it, it doesn't matter whether you clip now or later, but we do want this to lie flat, so you'll glue it at some point and press it so that this is flat, so that if your seam is going to be right here, and it'll lie flat right here, and I recommend gluing it so that the inside looks tidy. So actually right now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stabilize these back ends of, actually I'm going to trim it first. There we go. Okay. Now I know that I'm probably going to trim this off, but the other thing is, if I give this like an, like a third, no, an eighth of an inch. Third of it would be big. A quarter of an inch. An eighth to a quarter inch seam right here. I may end up with the perfect fit around this sole. So, but first I'm going to make sure that this is liberally fray checked, because I don't want to deal with this coming loose and catterwampus and becoming difficult, because I want to glue this down flat before I start forming this around the sole. I don't know how long these videos are going to be, but you know what? Once they're produced and published, you can speed through them and watch them 1,000 times. And it will be the length it will be, because I will have deemed it necessary to share with you something. And like I said, only you will be allowed to DM me if you are a member of the group. So, all right. I am so thrilled and appreciate your support and guidance and encouragement. I will stop the video for a second, let this dry. You can already see this is drying up nicely. And take a station break, and then I'll be back.